You were there, maybe in the living room, maybe shouting at the TV, when the game began and it felt electric. The opening sequence looked like the Chiefs were going to roll. A huge defensive play, the turnover that turned the crowd into a single roar, and then the offense answering like a well-tuned machine. For a few minutes everything clicked, and you let yourself believe this was the kind of Thanksgiving game that becomes a memory for the year. But sports are a story of momentum, and momentum can flip in a heartbeat. What followed felt like that flip on repeat. After the early high, the interception and the rapid 7 points, the game tilted. Small mistakes compounded into bigger ones. You could see the line wobble. You could see bodies miss assignments, and the Cowboys started to string together plays that punished those tiny cracks. Midway through the first half, the tone shifted from confident to desperate, and by the time the whistles and flags began to pile up, the feeling in Arrowhead was no longer celebration. It was concern. Let me be blunt about the score and the headline. The Chiefs fell 31-28 on Thanksgiving. That loss didn't just sting, it created real consequences for Kansas City's standings and their margin of error in the AFC. The immediate locker room picture after the game, faces tight, limited answers from the coaches, told you everything you needed to know. This wasn't just a bad night, it was a consequential one. The official game recaps and injury notes confirm the score and the injuries that changed the game flow. But beyond the scoreboard, there are swing moments that are worth replaying in your head. The drive that crossed midfield 4 times and produced 0 points. The penalty flag that erased a big gain on Xavier Worthy. The third down conversions the Cowboys repeatedly found. Each one looked small in isolation, but together they stacked into a mountain the Chiefs couldn't climb. And for you watching at home, the most painful part was probably the sense that there were opportunities, many of them, and this team did not take them. So tell me, in the comments right now, what single moment changed the game for you? Was it the early injury that altered the defense's tempo? A play erased by a penalty? Or that fourth quarter series where drives stalled? Drop one play and one sentence. I'll read them and react in the next video. Also, if you believe this team can still fight back into the playoff picture, smash that like button and subscribe to help us hit 6,000 subscribers so we can keep breaking down every game together. You and I both know injuries happen in the NFL. But what happened to the Chiefs on Thanksgiving wasn't normal. It wasn't bad luck. It was an avalanche. And once the first piece fell, everything around it started cracking. The injuries didn't just change matchups, they rewired the entire identity of the team in real time. And you could feel it in every snap afterward. The moment Brian Cook went down, you probably felt that same knot in your stomach I did. You could see immediately it wasn't a normal play-ending fall. He grabbed that right ankle, stayed down, and the entire defense seemed to go quiet around him. Cook isn't just another starter. He's the communicator, the adjuster, the guy who keeps the middle of the field organized. Losing him that early forced the Chiefs to reshuffle responsibilities on the fly. Safeties had to alter roles, coverage calls changed, and you could see from that moment forward that Dallas started attacking the seams with more confidence. That one injury created a ripple through the entire secondary, and against a quarterback like Dak Prescott, with weapons who get separation quickly, that ripple became a crack. But the real collapse came inside the trenches. When Jawan Taylor left with a triceps injury, the offensive line lost its anchor on the right side. You've watched enough Chiefs football to know how much Mahomes relies on stability at the edges. Without Taylor, the timing changed. The pocket timing changed. The playbook shrank. And every time the broadcast cut to Mahomes picking himself up off the turf, you were reminded of just how dependent this offense is on continuity up front. Then came the moment that turned concern into full-blown crisis. Josh Simmons going down with a wrist injury. At that point, You looked at the screen and realized the Chiefs were running with only 2 starting offensive linemen. Creed, Humphrey and Kingsley Suamataia. That meant 3 backups were trying to hold off a Dallas pass rush that thrives on confusion, overloads, and speed. And no matter how much you trust Mahomes, no quarterback thrives behind a line that unstable. He tried. He really did. You saw him make off-platform throws, scramble to create windows, and even attempt the impossible on broken plays. But nobody, not even him, can execute an offense when the protection collapses before a route can even develop. The impact was immediate. Drives stalled. Timing broke. The Chiefs crossed midfield 4 separate times and walked away with 0 points. Not because the plays weren't there, but because the offense never had rhythm. Every snap felt like survival instead of progression. When your quarterback is playing under duress every other down, you can't run the ball consistently, you can't push the ball downfield, and you can't play with the structure Andy Reid needs for this system to operate. Now here's where the stakes get even heavier. After the game, Andy Reid didn't offer any timelines for Cook, Taylor, or Simmons. Nothing. That silence isn't reassuring. It tells you the training staff still needs evaluations, and that the availability of those players for the Houston matchup is very much in doubt. And you know what that means. If those starters can't go, the Texans' defensive front is licking its chops. They rush with aggression, they twist, they blitz, and they thrive on chaos. The exact thing the Chiefs struggled to manage once the line broke down. So I want your take. If the Chiefs don't have Cook, Taylor, or Simmons next week, do you believe they can beat Houston? Give me a simple yes or no in the comments. And tell me which backup offensive lineman you trust the most to step up if needed. I'll feature the best takes in the next breakdown. And while you're here, hit that like button and subscribe to help this channel push past 6,000 subscribers. Every new sub helps us keep bringing you daily Kansas City updates during this playoff fight. You could feel the game slipping away, not because the Cowboys suddenly became untouchable, but because the Chiefs kept handing them life, with penalties and missed tackles that erased stops and extended drives. Kansas City was flagged 10 times for 119 yards, and those penalties directly helped sustain Dallas drives and flip field position when the Chiefs could least afford it. That stat alone explains a huge chunk of why this game ended the way it did. Most damaging were the pass interference calls against the secondary. Trent McDuffie, normally one of the team's most reliable corners, was hit with 3 defensive pass interference penalties, including a 32-yard call that set up a Cowboys field goal and another that kept a touchdown drive alive. Jalen Watson was also flagged. Those calls didn't just cost yards, they cost momentum at critical times and repeatedly gave Dallas new life on 3rd down. If you watched closely, some of those calls looked borderline. And that's why the officiating angle exploded across social media and punditry after the game. Then there was George Pickens' highlight that felt like a dagger. The unreal leap and hurdle that produced a huge chunk play and shifted the psychological edge. Plays like that don't just move the chains. They deflate the sideline and change how defenders play the rest of the drive. The Cowboys' top targets, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, combined for 13 catches and 200 yards, and they repeatedly found separation and won contested situations against Kansas City's backs of coverage. That combination of playmaking and penalty help was a lethal mix. Officiating aside, there were execution issues too. The Chiefs allowed 9 of 16 third down conversions to the Cowboys, which is a brutal number when you need stops to shorten the game clock and give the offense more chances. Too often Kansas City couldn't get off the field, and when you add that to self-inflicted offensive penalties that wiped out drives, you end up with an outcome that looks like a collapse rather than a narrow loss. I'll be straight with you. Some of these flags were questionable, and the calls made this game uglier than it needed to be. But even with officiating in the mix, the Chiefs put themselves in positions to be punished. Missed assignments, soft coverage on the seams, and tackles that didn't stick. You need to hold a balanced view, call out bad, whistles when they happen, but also demand cleaner fundamentals from the players who can still control their preparation and technique. Quick vote in the comments. One word only: injuries or officiating? Which hurt this team more tonight? I'll run the responses and feature the best short takes in the next video. And before you go, hit like and subscribe. We need your help to get to 6,000 subscribers, so we can keep breaking down every play, every flag, and every storyline together. This loss didn't just sting, it reshaped the entire AFC playoff picture for the Chiefs in one night. Going into Thanksgiving, Kansas City still controlled a big part of its destiny. Coming out of it, the path narrowed so sharply that it now feels like the team is walking a tightrope with no net underneath. And you felt that shift. The moment the game ended, the conversation stopped being about frustration and started being about survival. Here's the hard truth. The Chiefs are now behind the Chargers, Bills, and Jaguars. All of them sitting at 7-4, and all of them holding head-to-head wins over Kansas City. Officially, the Chiefs are only one game back in the record column. But in practice, they're 2 games behind each of those teams because tiebreakers are already lost. If those teams keep winning the games they should win, the Chiefs are going to need perfection just to keep pace. That's how punishing the AFC race has become. And there's a very real possibility that gap becomes even bigger this week. One more loss for the Chiefs, especially if Houston, Cleveland, or Indianapolis takes care of business, could widen the margin to the point where Kansas City would need a near-miraculous final stretch to sneak in. That's why this particular defeat feels bigger than the scoreboard. This wasn't a typical regular season loss. This was a standings earthquake. You saw it in the locker room afterward. Every report coming out described the same look on the players' faces: frustration, fatigue, and that heavy realization that the margin for error has evaporated. These players aren't blind. They know exactly what this loss means. They know that every week from here on out is basically an elimination game. And with injuries to Brian Cook, Jawan Taylor, and Josh Simmons all still without public timelines, there's no clarity, only pressure. Houston is next, and that matchup just turned from tough to dangerous. The Texans are physical, fast, and opportunistic. They don't need you to play your worst. They just need one weak spot to attack. And right now the Chiefs have several. That's why Houston becomes a pivot point. If Kansas City wins, they stay alive. If they lose, the season's direction becomes something we're not used to seeing in the Mahomes era: uphill, uncertain, and tight. But here's where the reality gets interesting. Despite everything, the injuries, the penalties, the offensive line chaos, the standings, the Chiefs still have Patrick Mahomes. And as long as he is upright, Kansas City has a chance in every single game. That's the lifeline. That's the reason you can't count this team out yet. But he can't do it alone. Not behind 3 backups, not with a secondary that's reeling, not with the playoffs slipping away inch by inch. So here's my question for you, and I want your gut answer. Do you still believe this team makes the playoffs? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments. I'll tally the results and read the majority verdict in the next update. And before you scroll, hit that like button and subscribe. We're pushing hard to reach 6,000 subscribers, and your support genuinely keeps this channel running during the toughest moments of the season. Fan, let me level with you as we land this plane. The Kansas City Chiefs are in unfamiliar territory. This isn't the dominant, terrifying, inevitable juggernaut you've gotten used to over the Mahomes era. This is a flawed team with real issues, and a fan base that's right to feel rattled after back-to-back late-game failures and another one-score collapse. The noise outside Kansas City is growing louder. Analysts are circling. The national media is watching every mistake like it's breaking news. And the rest of the AFC? They're smelling blood in the water. But here's the part they don't get. The Chiefs are not a collapsing dynasty. They're a wounded one. And wounded dynasties hit different. They learn. They self-correct. They break trends. They respond violently. And what you saw over these 11 games may not be the team you see when the calendar flips to late December. The Chiefs' problems are fixable. Fix the miscommunications in the secondary. Clean up the missed assignments in the red zone. Get more discipline in late-game situations. Re-establish an offensive identity built on tempo, quick hitters, and decisive movement rather than sluggish, predictable progressions. Lean on the young playmakers who consistently show hunger. And most importantly, get that sideline energy back. This team plays its best football when it's loose, aggressive, and borderline arrogant. Not when it's trying to avoid mistakes. Fans know it. Players know it. Patrick Mahomes definitely knows it. And if there's one quarterback in the NFL you should never count out after adversity, it's number 15. The question now is simple. Do the Chiefs want this season badly enough to fight through the ugliest stretch of the Mahomes-Reid era? We're about to find out, because the next few weeks are going to reveal the truth. Not about whether the Chiefs are perfect, but whether they're resilient, whether they're still the standard, whether the AFC should still be afraid. Fan, I want to hear from you on this. Are you still confident the Chiefs will turn the season around? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Before you head out, make sure to like this video. It helps push this content to more Chiefs fans. And subscribe to Total Chiefs News to help us push toward our goal of 6,000 subscribers. We're building one of the smartest and strongest Chiefs communities on YouTube, and you're a major part of that. Stay locked with Total Chiefs News. Hail Chiefs!